Every life is a story, every moment a chapter. Here on Slow English Stories, we pause to listen.
Hello and welcome to Slow English Stories.
We're glad you could join us.
Today we have a classic tale from Germany, a story that has been told to children for generations.
It's a story about a peaceful home on the edge of a dark wood, a loving mother, and a clever, hungry wolf.
Let's begin.
On the edge of the great Schwarzwald, the Black Forest of Germany, there stood a small cottage with a roof made of thick, golden straw. It was a happy place, a warm island of safety in a sea of ancient trees. Inside, the wooden floors were swept clean, a fire always danced in the stone hearth, and the air smelled of baking bread and dried herbs. This was the home of a mother goat and her 7 children, her 7 little kids. She loved them all with the fierce and gentle love that only a mother knows.
The forest that began just beyond their garden was another world entirely. Its pine trees were so tall and grew so close together that they seemed to drink the sunlight, leaving the ground in a state of permanent twilight. Fog often drifted between the dark trunks like a slow, silent river, and the wind whispered secrets that only the oldest trees could understand. It was a place of legends, a place of deep shadows and hidden dangers, and it was a place the mother goat respected and feared.
Her 7 children were the light of her life. The number 7 in the old tales is a number of completeness, a perfect family, and they were indeed her whole world. The oldest was brave and strong, always the first to volunteer for a chore. The second was a dreamer who loved to watch the clouds drift by. The third had a voice like a little silver bell and sang from morning until night. 2 were twins who played and tumbled together like a pair of acrobats. The 6th was quiet and kind, always making sure the others had enough to eat.
And then there was the 7th, the youngest of them all. She was the smallest, the one who often went unnoticed. She didn't speak as much as the others, but she saw everything. Her eyes were bright with a quiet wisdom, and she noticed the little details that her brothers and sisters, in their joyful noise, often missed.
One evening, as the last of the sun's golden light touched the top of the forest, a pair of yellow eyes watched the cottage from the deep shadows of the trees. The eyes belonged to the wolf. He was not just an animal. He was the forest's hunger, its cunning, and its cold, patient heart. He watched the warm light spilling from the cottage windows. He saw the small shapes of the children moving inside, and he waited. The wolf was a creature of the wild, a being of instinct and shadow, and he wanted to bring the chaos of the forest into the small, warm world of the cottage.
A few days later, the mother goat looked into her cupboards and saw that they were nearly empty. The jars of berries were gone, the sacks of flour were low, and there was only a little bread left. A deep worry settled in her heart. To feed her children, she knew she must go deep into the forest to gather roots and fresh greens. It was a journey she did not want to make, but a mother's love is stronger than her fear.
She gathered all 7 of her children around her, their faces turned up to hers like little flowers. "My dear children," she said, her voice soft but serious. "I must go into the forest to find food. You will be alone for a little while, and you must be very, very careful."
She looked at each of them, her gaze lingering on the youngest. "There is a great danger in the woods. You must be on your guard for the wolf. If he gets inside this house, he will eat every single one of you, skin and hair and all. The villain is clever and often disguises himself, but you can always know him. Remember these 2 rules and you will be safe. First, he has a rough, gravelly voice, not like my soft one. And second, he has big, black feet, not like my white ones. Do you understand? Promise me you will not open the door." "We promise, Mother," they all cried. "We will be very careful. You don't need to worry about us."
She kissed each of them on the forehead, gave one last warning look, and then, with a heavy heart, she closed the door behind her. The sound of the heavy wooden bolt sliding into place gave her a small measure of comfort. She was a brave mother, walking into the world of danger so that her family could remain in the world of safety. She did not know that the danger was already on its way to her door.
It was not long before the children heard a knock. A voice called out, "Open the door, my dear children. Your mother is here, and I have brought something wonderful for each of you." But the kids listened carefully. The voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. It was nothing like their mother's gentle voice. The oldest kid shouted, "We will not open the door. You are not our mother. Her voice is soft and sweet, but your voice is rough. You are the wolf." Outside, the wolf growled in frustration. They were cleverer than he thought. But the wolf was a patient creature.
He turned and trotted away from the cottage, heading toward the nearby village. He went to a small shop and bought a large piece of white chalk. He ate the entire piece, the dry powder coating his throat and making him cough. But when he spoke again, his voice was different. It was high and soft, almost musical.
He returned to the cottage and knocked again. "Open the door, children dear," he called in his new, sweet voice. "Your mother is home." The voice sounded just right. The children looked at each other, excited. But as they moved toward the door, the youngest one, the quiet observer, pointed to the window. "Wait," she whispered.
On the windowsill, resting in the light, was a paw. It was a huge, dark paw, covered in coarse black hair. "We will not open the door," they all cried out. "Our mother does not have black feet like you. You are the wolf." The wolf snarled. He had been tricked by his own feet. His anger grew, but so did his determination.
He ran to the village baker. "I have hurt my foot," he lied. "Please, rub some soft dough on it for me to make it better." The baker, a timid man, did as he was told, covering the wolf's black paws in sticky, white dough.
But the dough was not white enough. The wolf then went to the miller, who was covered in the fine, white powder of his trade. "Sprinkle some white flour on my feet for me," the wolf demanded. The miller was a wise man and saw the cunning in the wolf's yellow eyes. He knew this was for no good purpose. "No," the miller said. "I will not help you deceive someone."
The wolf leaned in close, his soft voice gone, replaced by a low, terrifying growl. "If you do not do it," he whispered, "I will eat you." The miller turned pale with fear. He looked at the wolf's sharp teeth and felt his courage disappear. He was a good man, but his fear was stronger than his goodness. Trembling, he took handfuls of the pure white flour and sprinkled it all over the wolf's dough-covered paws until they were as white as fresh snow. The wolf had not only disguised himself, he had made the world of men a partner in his crime.
For the third time, the villain returned to the little cottage. He knocked gently on the door. "Open the door, my children," he sang in his sweet, chalky voice. "Your dear mother has come home, and I have brought something for each of you from the forest." The children hesitated. The voice was perfect, but they remembered the second rule. "First," called the oldest, "show us your paw, so we know that you are our dear mother."
The wolf smiled a wicked smile. He lifted his foot and placed it carefully on the windowsill. The children gathered to look. They saw a paw that was soft and smooth and perfectly white. It looked just like their mother's. The first rule was satisfied. The second rule was satisfied. The oldest kid, proud and confident, turned to the others. "It's her. It's really Mother."
Only the youngest felt a cold shiver of doubt. Something was wrong, but she could not say what it was. Before she could speak, her oldest brother was already at the door, his hand on the heavy wooden bolt. The sound of it sliding back was loud in the quiet room. It was the sound of a promise being broken. It was the sound of safety ending.
The door swung open, but it was not their mother who stood there. It was a tall, dark shape that blocked out the light, a creature of nightmare with gleaming yellow eyes and a mouth full of sharp, white teeth. It was the wolf. For a moment, there was a frozen silence of pure terror. Then chaos erupted.
The children screamed and scattered, desperately trying to hide. One dove under the heavy wooden table. The second jumped into a bed and pulled the thick covers over her head. The third scrambled into the cold stove. The fourth ran to the kitchen. The fifth hid in the big cupboard, and the sixth slipped under the large wash basin.
The youngest, the quiet one, saw the tall grandfather clock in the corner of the room. It was a beautiful clock, a gift from her grandmother, with a steady, peaceful tick-tock that had measured all the happy moments of her life. The door to the clock's case was slightly open. With a burst of speed, she slipped inside, pulling the wooden door shut behind her just as the wolf began his terrible search.
From inside the dark, narrow space, she could see nothing. She could only hear. She heard the wolf's cruel laughter. She heard the sound of the table being thrown over, the crash of the wash basin breaking into pieces. She heard the frightened cries of her brothers and sisters, one after another, suddenly cut short.
Then there was a series of terrible gulping sounds. And then silence. A deep, heavy silence that was worse than the noise. The only sound left in the world was the loud, steady ticking of the clock right beside her ear. Tick-tock, tick-tock. It was a mechanical heartbeat in a house where all other life had been swallowed by the darkness of the forest. After a few minutes that felt like a lifetime, she heard the heavy footsteps of the wolf walking away and the sound of the cottage door closing behind him.
Later that day, the mother goat returned from the forest, her basket full of food. A strange feeling of dread grew in her as she approached her home. The garden gate was swinging open. The front door was ajar. Her heart began to beat like a drum. She stepped inside and gasped. The sight that met her eyes was one of utter devastation. Chairs and benches were overturned. The wash basin was shattered on the floor. The pillows and blankets had been ripped from the beds. It was as if a storm had torn through the heart of her home.
"My children!" she cried, her voice filled with panic. "Where are you?" She began to call their names, one by one, her voice trembling with a grief too large to imagine. Klaus, Lotte, Hans. She called every name, but the only answer was a terrible, echoing silence. Her happy home had become a tomb.
Finally, with her hope almost gone, she whispered the last name. "Frida, my youngest." And from the corner of the room, a tiny, muffled voice replied, "Dear mother, I am here. I am in the clock case." With shaking hands, the mother goat opened the door of the grandfather clock. Her smallest child tumbled out into her arms, weeping. Through her tears, she told her mother everything about the chalk, the flour, and the terrible wolf who had eaten all the others.
The mother goat held her last child close and wept, her tears falling like rain on the floor of her ruined home. But through her grief, a cold, hard anger began to grow. She would not let this be the end. She looked at her surviving daughter. "Where did he go?" she asked. The little kid, who had watched the wolf leave, pointed a trembling hoof toward the green meadow that lay between the cottage and the well. The mother goat took her child's hoof, and together they went out into the fading light.
There, under a large oak tree, lay the wolf. He was fast asleep, his stomach grotesquely swollen and round. He snored so loudly that the leaves on the branches above him trembled with each breath. As the mother goat stared at the monster, she saw something incredible. Inside his massive belly, something was moving. Something was kicking and struggling. "Heavens!" she whispered, a wild hope rising in her chest. "Is it possible? Could my poor children, swallowed whole in his greed, still be alive?"
She sent her youngest running back to the cottage. "Quickly, bring me my sewing basket. I need scissors, a needle, and strong thread." The little kid ran as fast as she could. When she returned, her mother took the sharp scissors and, with the steady hands of a surgeon, she carefully began to cut open the sleeping monster's stomach. She had barely made the first small cut when a little head with two small horns popped out. She cut a little more and a second kid jumped out, then a third and a fourth and a fifth and a sixth. One after another, all 6 of them sprang out onto the grass, completely unharmed.
In his greed, the wolf had swallowed them whole. What a joyful reunion! They hugged their dear mother and danced around her, laughing and crying with relief. But the mother was not finished. Her face was set with a grim determination. "Now," she said, her voice low and firm, "go to the stream and find me the biggest, heaviest stones you can carry. We will give this wicked beast a stomachful that he will never forget."
The 7 kids hurried to do as she said. They returned, dragging and rolling large, smooth stones from the riverbed. Silently, methodically, they filled the wolf's empty belly with the cold, heavy stones, as many as it would hold. They were replacing the warm life he had stolen with the dead weight of the earth. Then, with quick, expert stitches, the mother goat sewed the skin back together so perfectly that the wolf never stirred. He felt nothing at all. The family then hid themselves in the bushes to watch.
When the wolf had finally slept enough, he woke up. He felt a strange and terrible weight in his stomach, and the stones made him incredibly thirsty. He struggled to his feet. As he began to walk, the heavy stones inside him knocked and rattled against each other with a loud, clattering sound. He stopped, a confused and frightened look on his face. He cried out, "What rumbles and tumbles against my poor bones? I thought it was 6 kids, but it feels like big stones."
He stumbled awkwardly toward the old stone well to get a drink. He leaned over the edge, peering down at the cool, dark water below. But the great weight of the stones in his belly was too much. They pulled him forward, tipping him over the edge. With a final, terrified howl, he fell headfirst into the well and was drowned by the very weight of his own evil deeds.
When the 7 little kids saw it happen, they came running out from their hiding place. "The wolf is dead! The wolf is dead!" they shouted with joy. And there, by the well, the mother and her 7 children, a perfect family once more, joined hands and danced. They danced for their lives, for their cleverness, and for the return of safety to their small cottage on the edge of the great, dark forest.
And so the family was safe and whole once again.
Thank you for joining us for this classic story here on Slow English Stories.
We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to join us again for another tale.
Until next time, goodbye.